Away! 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 And welcome back to Devlog. In the last part I worked on, and in this part I work on additional things I have been doing for Pep-Pel is adding the initial cutscene for Pep-Pel, which outlines the cool backstory of Pep-Pel, where she was once a great wizard, and then touched a treasure chest, and then beefed it and became a little goblin. That is her story. Was it thought up retroactively to match with the actual game design? 100%. Pep-Pel is not a story-heavy game, and I can't make a devlog entirely about the story of Pep-Pel because there really is not a whole lot of it. Pep-Pel is a wizard. She touches a funny chest. She gets a big curse, and now she must murder the treasure chests and maybe get some treasure to restore her cursed body. The introduction coding is very simple. I just have animation events which change the actual text for the introduction and change the visual when it goes from one introduction piece to another. These are all very obviously simplistic drawn sprites. They are just little picture book drawings of Pep-Pel. These are mostly placeholders, but I like how some of them look, so in the future I may polish how the introductory cutscene looks visually. But for now I will leave them as they are because the story and introduction of Pep-Pel is not particularly something I have a very large focus on. Additionally, there are two other cutscenes in Pep-Pel that are animated in the same way, with PNGs and text below them, these being the introductory cutscene, which you have already seen in this devlog, this being the ending of Pep-Pel, which you have not seen, and this being the secret ending of Pep-Pel, and maybe a fourth one if I feel like drawing more images. But for now I'm leaving the introductory cutscene as it is, and then when it comes time to making the other cutscenes, I will probably redo the introductory cutscene to match with the art style I pick for the other cutscenes, and the introductory cutscene will not look so doodly. Or maybe it will forever. I do quite like how simplistic the introductory cutscene looks. I think it looks charmingly silly in how bad it looks. Some of the introductory cutscene PNGs I think look significantly better than the others. The last one where Pep-Pel is making the funny portals is pretty good. The one with the hand is pretty good. The one with the island is also pretty good. Realistically, I'm probably going to use these for the actual ending publishing version of the cutscene. I will just draw over these and make them a significantly large amount of detailed more. Make them more detailed. I think my brain is actively dissolving, and my grasp on the human language is slipping from me. Pep-Pel is at a point where there is not a whole lot left to make for Pep-Pel. Aside from levels, the general mechanics of Pep-Pel are pretty firmly established, and therefore the game is now a beta. In case you are unfamiliar, Pep-Pel has 8 levels and 8 hard mode levels. I have currently created 3 levels. I need to create 5 more. The next level that I'm creating is the aquatic abode level, so I need to draw a bunch of sprites for that, which will probably be what next week's devlog is about. But at the current point, the game is firmly established enough that it is at a state where it can be sent off as a demo to publishers mayhaps, which is what I have currently been doing for Pep-Pel. Now you may be asking, what is the process of such a thing? And I'm glad you asked. NDAs, more like ND-yays, because I'm happy about them. If I made a devlog about what I did this week, I would break several contracts, so instead I will discuss what the future development of Pep-Pel should be. In previous devlogs I have mentioned that I have been making a Kickstarter and a playable demo for Pep-Pel. Those things are currently available, but I have decided to delay the demo on the focus to more firmly send off visuals for Pep-Pel to publishers, which may help the development of the game in the future, in opposed to publishing a demo, currently at a point where the game may be ill-suited for the public eye, that being you. You're the public. What I mean to say is at the current point I am focusing on other things rather than the demo, that being actually sending the game to publishers, presenting it in a way that is more professional and good for that sense. And I do not have the time to make the demo for Pep-Pel, which means you aren't going to get to play this game until next year when it gets released. A lot of the features of Pep-Pel currently that I have been fixing are very minute features. For example, there are minute changes to the tracking system of the dash attack, there are minute changes to the rope movement system, there are very minute changes to level geometry, there are very minute changes to level visuals. Some levels have been updated to have different areas, but these are all very, very, very minute, and even me, internet crazy person, does not feel like making an entire devlog about these very small changes. Do you want to watch an entire devlog about the reason I changed a 0.5 value to a 0.6 value? Actually, you're 5 minutes into one of my videos, so most likely yes you do, but I do not feel like making a video on such a thing when it just behooves me to make more videos on more interesting topics, and I have my own notes for looking back as to why I changed a value from a 0.5 to a 0.7. I'll tell you anyway. The reason I went from a 0.5 to a 0.7, the value I changed, which being the wall timer system. The reason for this is when the player is on a wall running up it and then you jump to another wall, running up the other wall, there is a delay when the player touches a wall to when they have an actual check to make sure they can climb the wall. It's very, very small for the player, very larger for the code. This being that the player doesn't actually attach to a wall. The frame they hit a wall, they have to be hitting the wall for multiple frames to ensure that there is not any errors in touching walls. For example, if you touch a wall for one frame and then you move away from it, you don't want to actually use that wall collision. So I changed this value from a 0.75 to a 0.5, not the actual timer it has to tick up to, but the way the timer ticks has a 0.5 and a 0.7. That's not important for you. The important reason is that I changed this from a 0.75 to a 0.5 exclusively when the player has been running up a wall and jumps to another wall. So the feedback from jumping from one wall, running up it to another wall, and then clipping onto running up it is faster for the player, and there isn't as much of a delay, because I noted when doing these kind of movements there needs to be incredibly less of a delay when doing an actual wall grabbing movement. When doing a wall grabbing movement, it's better for there to be a delay because it is more satisfying for the player to clip onto the wall and there is more reason for errors. When in the air state system of a wall jump, this being when you're running up a wall and you jump off a wall, it is more satisfying for the player to instantly, air quote, instantly, much quickly achieve balance on the new wall, run up it, and also there are less instances in level design when this would happen incorrectly, so I have less of an opportunity to actually make errors in this coding system, so the timer that the player has to be climbing with the wall can be lessened. So a lot of instances of fixing on Pep-Pel this week has been making minor tweaks like that. I'm just going to go over all of them now because I think it's funny. The rope momentum buildup has been increased so that backwards momentum when using exclusively player inputs is more intense. This being the player moves to the right of the rope, they move left. Before there was some slight jittering or slowness of the movement, now there is a rope momentum buildup where the rope will travel faster if you have, as a player, moved from one side of the rope to another. This was complicated to do because the rope system is poorly designed. And the rope system is poorly designed because it initially required physics for it to work and then was reworked to be more timer based and then reworked further from there. So just adding a more further override to this already too complicated system was all I needed to do. Another change I made to Pep-Pel is the lighting system in the trash trail, where the lighting projections have a different bounding box. These have now been changed to a different sprite system so that these don't disable themselves when moving too far away and cause issues in player lighting being inconsistent in levels. Another change I have made is that potion throwing is slightly less angled. This will now go from a defaulting arcing position to a more horizontal straight line so the player can more accurately aim their potion throwing with the directional inputs, as I felt like missing with the potions or throwing them in an incorrect angle was more common than it should be when using the potion mechanic. Next, to actually talk about what is next for the curation of Pep-Pel. As I have mentioned, I will be working on the aquatic abode level, but at the meantime I feel like it would behoove me to more polish the current systems in Pep-Pel to make sure they are in a presentable way to show to other game developers and publishing studios, in opposed to working on a level that will go unfinished for a few weeks. I don't want to start a level and then present that to publishers when the level is more unfinished. I should more focus on the actual game where it currently is in the current state and focus on polishing that, making that as improved and detailed as I possibly can without adding new content that may complicate the current setup of the game. However, I will probably disregard that entire statement and still work on the aquatic abode because I like working too much, and also because the sprite work for the aquatic abode can be made and then not put into the game at any point. Provided there isn't too many errors in Pep-Pel, I can still continue to work on the future development of Pep-Pel as it is. As the demo form is more polished and improved, I can work on other features for the full game. However, this may be more intermittent than usual. As such, I have been working on other game projects in my free time when I do not feel like doing anything extra for Pep-Pel, or when the only thing I have done for Pep-Pel in a day has been changing very minute code values to make them slightly more improved. I have 2 of these game ideas, and I'm going to talk to you about them, because these videos are unscripted, and I can do what I want. One of these games is a Pikmin-like game. I have been working on a 3D movement system for both a player character and Pikmin-like characters, these being small units that follow the player and get distracted and lose interest with the player when they have gone a further distance away from the player. I will most assuredly make a devlog video about this next week once it is more finished. It is currently at a place where the player can move and the Pikmins can track behind the player. I showed this off as a goof last devlog, and this was mostly something I made in my free time, but I very much enjoy Pikmin. It is one of my favorite games, and I have always been fascinated with the movement functionality of Pikmin. I will very most likely not make this into a full game, but it will be a very fun project to do on the side when I do not have very much to do in Pep-Pel. A reason for this is that this project is very coding based, not a whole lot of visuals I really feel like making for the game, so it would be a lot of coding, which is good because I have not been coding very much in a complicated manner, in opposed to the very simple code of Pep-Pel that I have to change. I want to make some gross, mangled code systems once more. The coding for this setup so far is quite complicated in a odd way. For example, the actual momentum of the three-dimensional characters is programmed in a very similar way to Pep-Pel, where there is no physics or Unity-based physics involved, and they have a calculation of a vector 2 that they use to move across a surface of a area. This is very complicated and maybe unnecessarily so, but I despise with a burning passion every single base Unity controller and character controller and rigid body controller, so making my own for the Pikmin was the best method I could manage, and also was fun, and I would very much enjoy making a full devlog about this process once the Pikmin controller is more finished in a week. Another system I have been working on is my mystery dungeon generator. I made an entire devlog about this months ago. But I have been thinking about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, as I do, every night. I wish I was a funny little Riolu in a Mystery Dungeon world. I have been also wanting to code a game like this, where it is a very logically based Mystery Dungeon sort of adventure, where a dungeon is generated using the logic system, and then with the same logic system and the logic system for player movements, the player will be able to go on funny little adventures in a funny dungeon setting. This, like the Pikmin system, would be a very code-heavy system. There would be actually no physics at all, or even calculated fake physics that I like. In this system, it would just be grid-based movements in this little dungeon, and a whole lot of item-based logic for how this game would function, which is mostly why I had the idea for the game. Because Pep-Pel has a lot of visual things I need to draw, I mostly had the desire to make code systems for other games because I like coding and I miss it. Just like I miss my life. Currently I'm working on a visual setup where I can draw one sprite for a wall system of this dungeon and then have a three-dimensional generation of every single sprite variant of this based on the one wall that I can then draw over as a good reference for the perspective of all these wall systems. This is currently unfinished, and I will probably talk about it since it is finished, next week. And that's it for Devlog. Have you missed the unorganized bad devlogs? Because I have missed making them. Next week I will make another game, or I won't, and I'll draw things for Pep-Pel. Who is to say? I do not plan my weeks in advance. Actually, I do, very extensively, but I have 3 weekly plans, and I don't know which one to choose, so very complicated things. There's a really cool video I watched recently about which digi-device is one that you should get if you're interested in digi-devices, Digimon V Pets. So you should probably check that video out next. It's by Humulomon on YouTube, so go watch that. Tell me your thoughts, get back to me. Watch the video, click back on YouTube, and then type in a comment what you thought of that video.